Hey, what's going on, guys? UFC 296 is a couple weeks away, and there are a lot of high-profile welterweight matchups on this card, but two fighters I want to discuss are Colby Covington and Layla Machado Garry. And I know there's been a lot of controversy surrounding Layla Machado Garry and his wife, and I'll give my opinion on that later in the video. I don't want to spend too much time on that TMZ-esque drama, but I was really thinking about how similar Colby Covington and Layla Machado Garry are, and then I realized Layla Machado Garry is everything that Colby Covington ever wanted to be. And I'm going to break it down in detail in this video and also discuss how I think Layla Machado Garry is one of the smartest fighters on the UFC roster. And we're going to discuss the future of Colby Covington and the future of Layla Machado Garry. That's the whole point of this video, is looking at what's going on right now, the circumstances surrounding both these guys right now, and kind of determining their futures. Now, starting off, I want to discuss Colby Covington's backstory, because Colby Covington doesn't have a very fan-friendly style. He's kind of a wrestling-heavy style, doesn't have a lot of finishes. And early on in his career, nobody cared about Colby Covington. Everyone thought he was boring, and the UFC wasn't even going to re-sign him. This is the story we've been told countless times. And what Colby Covington did was he conjured up a WWE persona where he started talking trash about everyone to get people to care about him as a fighter, even though he didn't have this crazy fight style. He had a good fight style or a good skill set, and he also now has this WWE persona, which will garner interest around his name. And he eventually, essentially saved his career in the UFC because the UFC was thinking about not re-signing him to a contract. And Colby's gone on to have 2 title shots against Kamaru Usman. He lost those both, but now he's getting a 3rd title shot against Leon Edwards. And a lot of those title shots can be kind of, watered down to his trash talk. And I know Colby is a great fighter, and he definitely earned the first Kamaru Usman title shot. You can even make an argument for the second one. But either way, you can definitely say he most likely wouldn't have gotten those shots because he wasn't that interesting or fan-friendly up until he kind of brought on that WWE persona, and he's become a low-level draw in the UFC, and we'll discuss that a little bit in this video as well. Then you have Layla Machado Garry, who's come into the UFC. He's been in the UFC for about 2 years, and he's on this long win streak, and he's starting to fight up towards the top 10 of the division, and he's talking a lot of trash as well, and a lot of it's kind of corny and cringy. And from the second he started really doing it about a year ago or so, I started thinking this guy is kind of a version of Colby Covington, because basically what they're both doing is trying to garner attention by talking trash and kind of manufacturing drama so they can get attention, so people care about their fights, so they can become a draw and make more money in the sport. And Colby, while he did it to get hated, I don't feel like he got that much hate. I feel like if anything, he just got more fans. There are some people that hate him, but I think a lot of people are just indifferent to Colby Covington. I get called a Colby Covington hater all the time just for speaking facts. But for me personally, I'm just indifferent to Colby Covington. I don't care about his interviews. I don't care about his trash talk. I find it all kind of cringy and corny. And for Layla Machado Garry, I feel a similar way about his trash talk too. I think it's cringy and corny. And, it's not as bad as Colby's, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm not a huge fan of any really manufactured drama. I can love a good backstory. But when it feels kind of manufactured just for the sake of manufacturing some drama, I'm not a huge fan of that. And both Colby Covington and Layla Garry do that. Now, also, you have the similarity between the two of Layla Machado Garry being kicked out of Team Renegade. Now, his backstory was because of Leon Edwards. We don't know the full true story behind that. But then you have Colby Covington. When he started talking trash, he got kicked out of American Top Team, which led to a fight against Jorge Masvidal, who was a training partner and best friend at one point in time. And honestly, I think that started off kind of as a ruse, and I think it snowballed into them actually not liking each other. So you look at Layla Machado Garry and Colby Covington and you think, okay, they're both kind of talking trash and it's kind of cringy, and they also both got kicked out of gyms. It's similar in a way. And also, the point of it is both of them are trying to get attention from the fan base and primarily trying to get some hate from the fan base. They're trying to become a heel in the UFC. That is what they're trying to do. That is what they're trying to achieve. And that's why, even though I say they're similar and I started to think about it, I think Layla Garry does everything that Colby Covington does, but better. Even if you look at, I'll go as far back as a cold sore. Layla Machado Garry had a cold sore like a year ago. People will not let it go. People still say, Layla Machado Garry has herpes and this and that. And I know this is a crazy comparison, but Colby Covington had a cold sore back at the UFC 245 pre-fight presser. I was there live. It was in New York. It was at UFC 244. The crowd was chanting, Colby has herpes. Now, nobody ever talked about it again after that. People are still focused on Ian Machado Garry's cold sore, which just shows you that Ian Machado Garry's personality, love him or hate him, is gravitating more for the fan base. The fan base cares more about Ian Garry, even if it's, wanting to see him lose. Then you look at the trash talk. You look at Colby and he's just kind of throwing out nicknames, and some of the nicknames are kind of funny. But other than that, it's just this corny, cringy trash talk that it seems like he's getting from Family Dollar, and he's reading it right before he goes out to the press conference. And it's just not all that great. I know some people love it. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not excited for a Colby Covington fight, but I'm excited for the press conference. Well, Colby Covington has this cringy trash talk. So does Ian Garry. But I think Ian Garry's better at trash talking. He actually finds something to pick up on and hone in on. And I know people, this is kind of a hot topic recently, but people are saying, oh, how dare he put Jeff Neal's mugshot on a t-shirt? People are more outraged that Ian Machado Garry put Jeff Neal's mugshot on a t-shirt than they were outraged for Jeff Neal drinking and driving, putting other people's lives at risk. More people are upset about the t-shirt. Then people bring up the whole Neil Magny stuff, and Neil Magny saying he's been accustomed to dishing out those types of whoopings now that he has a son. We'll talk about it a little bit more later in the video. But I think Ian Garry's, whether it's gotten him hate or not, I feel like it's gotten him more attention. And at the end of the day, both Colby Covington and Ian Garry talk trash to get attention from fans. So I think Ian Garry better for both of those things. And then on top of that, you look at, they both got kicked out of gyms. Joey, how are you going to say Ian Garry did a better job of getting kicked out of a gym? Well, if you look at Colby Covington, he got kicked out of a gym and it built up the storyline against Jorge Masvidal, which he inevitably got a pay-per-view headliner. Okay, sure, whatever. That was an interesting build-up to that fight. It wasn't all that great of a fight, and it wasn't all that great of a build-up either. But you look at Ian Machado Garry, what did him getting kicked out of a gym, what did that set up? Well, it set up an amazing storyline against current champion Leon Edwards. Tell me that's not a storyline that would help propel Ian Garry into a title shot. If Leon Edwards is still the champion and the UFC has that backstory of, oh, he got kicked out of the gym, that's going to be a massive storyline going into the fight. Oh, they were former teammates. The UFC loves those types of storylines. They loved it with Colby Jorge. They loved it with Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw. So, you look at Ian Garry, him getting kicked out of the gym, whether it's a 5% bonus or a 20% bonus, it helps inch him a little bit closer to a potential title shot. Then you start to look at some of the differences, and I just think you look at Ian Garry's fight style versus Colby Covington's fight style, you tell me which one's more exciting. So Ian Machado Garry, not only is he a better trash talker, not only did he get kicked out of a gym better, not only do people care more about his cringy, corny trash talk, but on top of that, he's got much more exciting, fan-friendly fight style. I don't think Colby Covington's all that boring, but if you look at his fight style, it is the literal epitome of the fight style a lot of fans claim to hate. It's that, nonstop takedown, Merab-esque fight style. Colby Covington is basically a bigger version of Merab, who a lot of fans hate because of his fight style. Now, me, again, personally, I don't hate Colby's fight style. I don't absolutely love it. I'm not dying to see him fight every time he fights, but most people say, I'm excited to see a Colby Covington's press conference, but I'm not really excited to see him fight. So Ian Garry's fight style, far superior to Colby Covington's, elite level striker, fun to watch, and, looking for finishes where Colby Covington, when's the last time he's had a finish? He couldn't even finish the washed up Jorge Masvidal. Last time he got a finish was when Tyron Woodley broke his rib in a fight, and it wasn't even a real finish. I mean, it was anticlimactic. So Ian Garry's got a better fight style. Then on top of all that, you look at Ian Garry and you look at the future that he has ahead of him right now, and you look at the amount of attention that he gets right now. If Ian Garry can continue to win, he might already be a bigger draw than Colby Covington. I know that's highly speculative, and that may not be true right now. But if he wins 1-2 more fights and he continues to talk trash in the way he is, I think he's going to be a way bigger draw than Colby Covington. Now, Colby Covington can flip this whole thing upside down. If Colby goes out there and finishes Leon Edwards, all bets are off. Colby Covington has erased the whole history of him over the last couple years, because another difference between the two is Ian Garry is actually active in the sport. Since Colby's last fight, Ian Garry has fought 5 times. 5 times. 6 times when he fights Vincente Luque. Obviously, Colby fights on the same night. So you have Ian Garry, a better trash talker, has a better storyline against the champ. also a better fight style. And then on top of that, he's more active. And right now, Layla Machado Garry deserves a welterweight title shot more than Colby Covington. He at least has a win over a current top 15 ranked welterweight, which was Neil Magny, who I believe he, 30-24? He dominated him, destroyed him. Meanwhile, Colby's 2-2 in his last 4 with 2 lost title shots, one where he got stopped in. And then you look at the Jorge Masvidal fight, wasn't all that impressive. He got dropped, and I don't want to say he almost got finished, but he could have got finished there against the dead body of Jorge Masvidal. Look what Burns did to Masvidal. And then Colby just sat out for almost 2 years now? It's coming up on 2 years. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but it's over a year and a half since Colby last fight. So Ian Garry, on all these different facets, is just doing better than Colby Covington. And if he can continue to win and continue to talk the way he's talking, and he's not stumbling over his trash talk as much as you have Colby Covington doing, I believe Ian Garry is 1 win, maybe 2 wins away from being a much bigger draw than Colby Covington. You look at Colby Covington's fight against Jorge Masvidal. I've referenced this many of times. It's sold under 400K pay-per-view buys. We have that from a reliable source, the Sports Business Review Journal. I will link it down in the description. Colby versus Masvidal sold under 400,000 pay-per-view buys. That's how big of a draw Colby is. We have that. Now, maybe his return is going to garner massive pay-per-view buys. I don't think it's going to. Now, if he wins, and let's say he wins emphatically, I think his star power will rise significantly. But Ian Garry's star power, whether you hate him or love him, a lot of people want to see him lose. So I think his star power is also going to rise dramatically, especially if he goes out there and beats Vincente Luque. Now, if he loses to Vincente Luque, all bets are off. The star is going to dwindle quite a bit, but he can always build back because he's only 26 years old. If Colby Covington loses, let's say Leon Edwards goes out there and just starches him, he's 35 years old, almost 36, turns 36 in February. Where does he go from there? He's not going to get another title shot. He's already had 3, lost all 3. So they're in vastly different positions in their careers. But if you start to compare every metric, Ian Garry is in a better spot than Colby Covington. And there's another similarity between these two that I really want to get to, but we'll save for the last part of the video because I actually think it's hilarious. But I want to talk about the Ian Garry whole wife relationship TMZ stuff. And first off, I want to start off by saying the MMA media landscape is an absolute embarrassment. The fact that people are grasping on to TMZ-esque headlines. You have regular MMA media websites covering this stuff. You have a lot of content creators covering this stuff. And I just think it's an embarrassment. And I know technically now I'm doing it in this video, but I think it's an embarrassment that we're literally covering the relationship of a fighter when it really doesn't have anything to do with what's currently going on in the sport. It just makes absolutely no sense. There's no real angle to really enter into the personal life. And what people are doing is, and websites are doing, and YouTube videos, or people who run YouTube channels are doing, they're just looking to generate clicks and views because drama generates clicks and views. And there's people acting as if, oh, I want to discuss this story because I really care for Ian Garry and I want him to get out of his relationship. And we'll talk about a couple points that people are making. And it's not that. All it is, oh, let's stir up some drama, TMZ style, and let's get some views. Let's get some clicks on our website. Let's get some engagement on Twitter. Let's get some engagement on Instagram. And that's all it is. Let's start some weird relationship issue and cover it and make up stuff just so basically I can put $1 in my pocket. It's indirectly going or directly going in their pockets, whether it's a media website or a YouTube channel. And I know some people are going to be down in the comments and say, oh, you're talking about this person. You're talking about that person. Look, I'm not a person to be passive aggressive. Okay. This is about every single person that it applies to. Every single person. I don't care if it's a YouTube channel. I don't care if it's a, website. I don't care if it's this. I don't care if it's that, a Twitter. It's everyone that this applies to. To talk about another grown man's relationship so deeply just to stir up drama is an embarrassment. But with that all being said, let's talk about a grown man's relationship because there's 3 things that people have been spouting off over and over and over again. And I've been blocking it out and I've been ignoring it. I didn't want to make a dedicated video on it at all. But the reason I have to discuss it in this video is because a lot of it's factually wrong and a lot of the MMA community runs with it. And this comes back to the appeal to popular opinion fallacy. Just because it's a popular opinion does not make it true. And because this has been getting spouted off on every social media platform and every MMA website, the vast majority of the MMA community are just running with these things and they're pretending like they're true. I keep seeing them in chat and I keep getting questions in chat and I'm like, dude, I don't care. I do not care about this. But the majority of what's being said is basically false. It's basically false and people are just saying this to drum up drama. Let's go over a couple key points just very quickly. Layla Machado Garry and his wife lives with his wife's ex-husband. False. I've asked people keep telling me this. I say, look, I haven't seen any evidence to prove this. If somebody has evidence to prove this, let me know down in the comments. I cannot find a single shred of evidence to support the fact that Layla Garry and his wife lives with his wife's ex-husband. Now, maybe they have a good relationship, but guess what? His wife has a kid with her ex-husband. It's not out of the ordinary for step parents to have a good relationship because you're having to raise or be in part a parent to someone else's child. So that's not out of the ordinary. Next up, you have Layla Machado Garry took his wife's ex-husband last name. I've already covered this in a previous video. Flat out not true. That was Layla Garry's wife's maiden name, who she gave to her child that she had from a previous marriage. And then they wanted everyone to be included in the family. So Layla Garry added that name to everyone's name so that the stepchild could feel included in the family, which actually I think is admirable. But for some reason, a portion of the incel MMA community thinks this makes you less of a man. I'll gladly champion the Layla Garry. I'll be president of the Layla Garry fan club if it means, oh, I want to make a young child feel more included in his family by taking and adding an extra name to my name. And why does anyone care what another grown man does with his last name? That's absolutely bizarre. Next up, you have Layla Machado Garry married a gold digger. And this all stems from some book on Amazon called WAG or something along those lines. This is just so dumb and there's so many holes that you can poke into this. And this all has to do with the fact that she's 40 years old and he's 26, I believe going on 27. So she's like 14 years older than Layla Machado Garry. First off, they've been together for a couple years. Second off, I'm probably richer than Layla Machado Garry right now. Do you realize what the UFC pays? Have you seen all the pay rates that have recently come out? And that includes discretionary bonuses. Conor McGregor, even for UFC 205, wasn't even getting paid that much. And Conor McGregor's known as like the richest fighter ever. You think Layla Machado Garry's on some massive contract? And also, the book that people are speculating about was wrote 10 years ago, and she's come out and said this was a satire book. Whether you want to believe that or not, I can't help you. But the fact that people are acting as if they're worried for Layla Machado Garry's, well-being. Oh, she's taking advantage of him. She's a gold digger. Well, he isn't rich yet. He gets knocked out by Vincente Luque and 2 more opponents. He's gone. He's fighting in LFA or back to Cage Warriors for him. And he's not going to make $1 million. He's not going to make $5 million. So to sit here and try to, harass a woman online, because that's what a lot of people are doing. If you are harassing somebody's family online, you are a disgrace. And on top of all this, I see people defending it. I've seen people defending it in my chat. And this is a common theme going around MMA community. Well, Layla Garry did talk crap to Jeff Neal with the mugshot. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And the Neil Magny stuff. Neil Magny came out in a press conference and said, I've become accustomed to giving out those whoopings since I had a kid now. I'm going to whoop Layla Garry, and I've become accustomed to giving out those whoopings since I had a kid. Neil Magny's son was born in 2020. So Neil Magny's son is 3 years old. And Neil Magny's saying he's accustomed to whooping him, which means to beat or strike. So Layla Garry took that and built a fight off of it because it was a disgusting comment. Neil Magny never came out and said, I was joking. I didn't mean that. I don't touch my kids. And people are defending this. People are more upset that Layla Garry said, I don't like this comment and I'm going to use it to promote this fight and I'm going to beat the shit out of him for saying it. People are more outraged at that than they are outraged at Neil Magny saying, I whoop my kids and I've become accustomed. That is just crazy to me. And then one last thing I want to discuss, and this kind of goes back to the whole, he lives with his wife's ex-husband and, he took his wife's ex-husband last name. A lot of people talk about, Layla Machado Garry's a cuck and he's this and he's that. Well, you look at Colby Covington. I want to make one more comparison here in a second, but actually, we're going to make this one as well. If you look at Colby Covington, this man, people are worried about personal lives. Colby Covington is 35 going on 36. He doesn't have a wife or kids. Okay. So, he must be a bad person. He doesn't have a wife or kids. We need to look out for Colby Covington. We got to be all upset. Colby, we got to find him a wife and kids. 36 years old. That's bizarre. Why aren't people talking about that? I'm being sarcastic here for people who are going to say, oh, Joey, you're so hypocritical. I'm being sarcastic. Colby Covington is literally hiring prostitutes to record Instagram videos with him. And let's just say they're like 3 or 4, it's 4s out of 10s. Ian Garry married a woman who's a little bit older than him, or a lot older than him if you want to say, 13, 14 years. That is a significant age gap, who's literally a 10 out of 10. So a lot of these people are just so disgusted with the fact that they think, oh, how could Ian Garry do this? How could he should be with some young woman and there's no way she should have ever been married in the past. And there's no way that she should have ever had a kid with another man. And there's no way she should have any type of good relationship with the father of her other child. For some reason, people think that's some type of big deal. Meanwhile, well, why aren't you worried that Colby Covington's 36, no wife, no kids, and he's hiring prostitutes to pose in Instagram videos with him? Disgusting behavior. Now, I'm being sarcastic there, so don't sit down in the comments and say, Joey, you're so hypocritical. But if you had to choose, oh, you have a great family with a couple kids, with a 10 out of 10 wife, and everything's great, and you got a budding UFC career, or you're a guy who is 36 years old, you've talked your way to multiple title shots, and you're hiring prostitutes to pose in videos with you, I know which side I want to be on. And this all comes back to the incel portion of the MMA community. They can't stand to see, a woman in the community that they can't just help but harass her for whatever reason, because she's an attractive female, and because they don't like Ian Garry, they want to attack her, which is just disgusting behavior. And it just comes back to these people who don't have any relationships with women, who don't talk to any women. They see her and they pick out these certain things and they're saying, oh, I would never be in a relationship like that. Well, you're right, you wouldn't be in a relationship like that, because you'd never be able to find a woman like that who would even give you her cell phone number. That's exactly why. Now, one last comparison I want to make between Colby and Ian Garry, which I absolutely love this one, because I've seen a lot of hate because Ian Garry has come out, or his wife has come out and threatened legal action against Sean Strickland, because Sean Strickland is saying a lot of these lies. I haven't really dug into exactly what Strickland said. I don't care. But a lot of people are saying, oh, well, how could he threaten? I mean, people will say, what a soy fighter. How could he dare threaten legal action? Well, you better start saying that about Colby Covington, because guess what? Colby Covington took legal action against Jorge Masvidal. He took legal action against Jorge Masvidal. So both Ian Garry and Colby Covington, when suffering an offense of criminality from somebody else, took legal action. And we haven't even confirmed. They just threatened legal action. Colby Covington actually took legal action against Jorge Masvidal and took a settlement, because they talked trash in the past. And Colby said, if I ever see Jorge Masvidal out, I'm going to dump him on his head. And Jorge Masvidal said, if I ever see Colby out in the streets, I'm going to punch him in his teeth. And he actually did that. He actually did that. And guess what? Colby was well within his right to call the police and, file charges against him and make him pay him money. But don't complain and say, oh, it's so horrible. Ian Garry's threatening legal action against Sean Strickland. Well, guess what? It looks like they both like to go to the police. I wouldn't be surprised if Colby Covington called the fire department as well, because he got punched coming out of a steakhouse. So I just wanted to make these comparisons, because this fan base, it's so funny because they're so pro Colby, and him and Ian Garry have a lot in common, except Garry is a lot better at everything they claim Colby Covington is good at. And I think the future of Ian Garry, no pun intended, is very, very bright. Meanwhile, Colby, it's do or die at UFC 296. Let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.